Hey everybody, this is Ron Fitch's Tell the Truth Sports where I'm gonna tell you the truth about the NFL. Who are the contenders and who are the pretenders? Last week told a lot about what was going on because the top rated defense and the top rated offenses are the Frisco, the Eagles, and the Cowboys. And they all won last week. Now, I since the NFL, they had their games. So I want to break down the contenders who are Super Bowl ready and teams that are just playoff teams. The Chargers beat the Cardinals. If they're healthy, they're Super Bowl ready. I want to talk about the big game Sunday was the Bengals out toughing the Titans. And this is the second time they stopped Derrick Henry. And big backs like Derrick Henry and Najee Harris and then Eric Dickerson back in the day, the smaller backs don't need a lot of crevices and holes to run through. The bigger backs need holes because the way they are running in between the tackles, they have to get ahead of steam going. Even the great Derrick Henry, and I saw Najee Harris when he's healthy, that they need that hole that they could burst through. And once they get through that, there's trouble. But the littler backs, they don't need as much of a hole to get through. And that's what the Bengals did. They took away the hole, and Derrick Henry didn't go crazy. He had a great touchdown on a screen pass, but for the most part, this was a game that was going to come down to Tannehill versus Burrow because both defenses were doing a good job, and all my money's on Joe Burrow because he's that guy, and he did what he did. Great touchdown pass to T. Higgins is 20-13, and Tennessee's driving, and they should have went for it. They settled for the field goal, and you knew they weren't going to get the ball back, especially an idiotic, unnecessary roughness penalty on the kick. Even if they make the kick, Tannehill's not going out in the field and tying the game. We all know that. But the Bengals, they're starting to find themselves, even without Jamar Chase. I didn't pick them to go Super Bowl. They're Super Bowl ready. I'll give you the Super Bowl ready teams in the AFC, and I'll give you the playoff teams. The Super Bowl ready teams are Kansas City, of course. And if they play Cincinnati, and that's a big game for the simple fact that Cincinnati's only 2 games behind Kansas City. So if they win, Kansas City has to win out because Cincinnati could get home field because they beat Tennessee and Kansas City. And plus, Tennessee's lost to Tennessee. I mean, Kansas City lost to Cincinnati and Cincinnati. They lost to them. They had the 21-3 lead in the championship game. So they don't want to start to create doubt. But I'm gonna break that game down Friday. But that's a big game. And the Dolphins, they're in the 20-ish, somewhere in the 20s defensively, but they're the second top rated offense in the NFL, slightly below Kansas City. And the Dolphins are humming. And when you got those monsters at wide receiver with Waddle and the Cheetah, Tyreek Hill, and now they got a good running game, and now the tight end is solid, and Tua is undefeated this year as a starter, and they're just putting up terrific numbers. I mean, he had 300 yards passing, and they're getting good in between running with Jeff Wilson. Now you're balanced. Now you have a balanced team, but they got the 49ers, the team I said has the most talent overall in the NFL. I got shot down by one of my friends saying that Dallas is the most talent, but they're not the most talent. When you got Ayuk, you got Debo Samuel, you got Uchik at backup tight end. You got Greg Kittle, one of the best tight ends in all of the NFL. You got Trent Williams on offensive line, the best offensive lineman. Now, Garofalo, I don't trust, but he's okay. Okay can get you to the Super Bowl, and he got the best between Armstead and Bosa, and they got the second best rated safety in all of football. All the back end and the front end is solid. That's the problem. They won 13-0 against the Saints. They got to get more production with that high-powered offense. Dallas is getting more production out of their offense. But I'll go back to the AFC. The Super Bowl ready teams. Tennessee's not that. Baltimore losing to Jacksonville, that's all I need to see out of Baltimore. Tennessee and Baltimore are playoff teams. They'll be home the first week of January. They won't go far. Tennessee, I don't trust Tannehill. And if you load up against Henry, they take Henry out. This is why I love Vrabel, great coach, but you got to keep Henry on third down. I'm throwing a screen pass. If I'm not getting a running game going, at the very least, like they did on screen pass for the touchdown, I'm giving him space to catch the ball in the secondary. And there's not too many safeties and cornerbacks that want to tackle him. I would change up a little bit. But if they're going to stay the same, they're not going nowhere. Cincinnati Super Bowl ready. I don't know if they're going to make it this year. It's hard to come right back after going to the Super Bowl because now all that good fortune you had against the Titans, against Tennessee, against the Raiders, where there was breaks that helped them, but there was great play by Burrow too, which will continue. Is Jamar Chase going to be healthy when the playoffs come? That's going to be big. And see, the Jets are a playoff team. They're not Super Bowl ready. But now that they got the quarterback issue settled, Mike White is just solid. He threw 3 touchdowns against the Bears. Like, say, for instance, Cincinnati runs into a team like the Jets. That's a bad matchup. Historically, the Jets are undefeated against Cincinnati in the playoffs. But not only that, they got Sauce Gardner, and they got their other corner, and their safeties are great. Their secondary is one of the best, other than the Eagles. The Jets secondary is one of the best secondaries in the NFL. And they're very good on the run. So now, Mixon and the running game of the Bengals, which is really good. And now Chase is guarded by Sauce Gardner. If Sauce Gardner and the other corner shuts down Chase and Higgins, and the Jets can get good pass, the Bengals offensive line still gives up sacks to Burrow, the matchup is interesting. But the one thing I'll tell you about the Bengals, their defensive coordinator is one of the best in the NFL at second half adjustments. Just look at the games they win. Look at the championship game. The Chiefs didn't score a single point. Look at the game this week. I mean, take a peek at the game this week. The Titans scored 6 points, 2 field goals in the second half. So they're trending up, and they're going to beat Baltimore. Baltimore's in first place now. They're just a placeholder. Cincinnati's going to win their division. They're going to whoop Baltimore and Cincinnati. But I do believe Kansas City will find a way to get home field. They better, because say, for instance, I don't think this is going to happen. Say, for instance, Miami beats Buffalo in Buffalo. You don't want, if you've been playing in cold weather all year long, you don't want to go to South Beach playing football. You want to go to South Beach on vacation now. You don't want to go to South Beach when you played in the cold all year long and it's 80 degrees in January and you're looking for IB and you're cramping up and Miami is running right past you. Miami and Buffalo have the most distinct home field advantage. Buffalo's going to be freezing, cold, biting cold wind. Buffalo's used to that. So that's interesting. But I do think Buffalo is Super Bowl ready. Josh Allen has got to stop throwing red zone interceptions. But they're Super Bowl ready. Kansas City, Super Bowl ready. Miami is Super Bowl ready. Cincinnati, Super Bowl ready. The Jets, the Chargers, if they're healthy. I put a disclaimer on the Chargers because Herbert is ready to take you to the Super Bowl. But I got to see Allen. I got to see Williams healthy. I got to see the defense get healthy. I got to see them play a little better on defense because they got the talent. I got to see the Chargers get healthy, and they got to get in. New England is just a playoff team. They're just pedestrian. Good defense. Belichick coached them up. Offense is just ordinary. But the Jets are a team that could pull off an upset. I don't think Baltimore's that team. Tennessee, maybe, if Tannehill has a good game. Tannehill's not going to have 2 good games. Maybe he catches you with a game where he plays over his head in the first round. The second round, I don't think you put 2 playoff games together. So there you have an AFC. The NFC, let me give you the Super Bowl ready teams. Obviously, Minnesota. Yes, Minnesota. I don't trust Cousins. I trust the rest of the team. I love their coach. I do not trust Cousins. There's no way I'm picking Kirk Cousins to go to Arizona and play in the Super Bowl. Minnesota's got to get to the Super Bowl. Then I'll say, okay, I'm wrong. I refuse to pick him. Seems like a nice guy. Just when it comes to pressure, I don't believe in him whatsoever. I've seen enough of a sample size. The Eagles are Super Bowl ready. They're home. They run the ball really well. They ran the ball down Green Bay's throat. I mean, good gosh. Jalen Hurts rushed for 157 yards. Sanders rushed for 143 yards. They ran the ball, and the Packers, they're not going to make it, but they weren't prepared for Hurts. The problem is with the Eagles, you run to a team that, say, for instance, you play Washington again. Washington knows, listen, we're going to have a spy on Hurts. You're not running. We're going to run you out of the pocket. The one weakness Jalen Hurts has, if you watch him, when he runs out of the pocket, he doesn't throw the ball to complete a pass. A lot of times he just throws the ball out of bounds because he doesn't have the range of motion when you see him throw. When he's in the pocket, he's solid because he's got Brown and Smith and Goddard and Sanders coming out of the backfield, even Boston Scott. They're underratedly. Everybody talks about how loaded Dallas is offensively, but the Eagles are just as loaded offensively. And they got the best secondary, and their pass rush is, if you want to put Dallas at number one pass rush, I got to put Eagles 2 or 3, but with the 4, they get after you. And they're a sound defensive team. And they're a smart offensive team. They're usually very good. They weren't good this week, but they're a very good short yardage team. But I just wonder if Jalen Hurts is ready. He's developed really fast, but there's still things I need to see at Jalen Hurts. People say, oh, don't hate. I'll talk about the Eagles and say they need this. I'll tell a Cowboy fan, you're good, but you need that. And I try to tell them it's not hate. My shows tell the truth. I'm going to tell you the truth whether you like it or not. That's what my show is. But that's what I see out of the Eagles. The other team that Super Bowl raised the 49ers, they got to score some more points. With all them weapons I just told you they had in that offensive line and the way they could run it with McCaffrey, the way they could pass it with all those weapons, and Deebo Samuel could be in the backfield, and Shanahan, the way he dials up all these exciting plays. And Garoppolo he's a statue in the pocket. So that scares me a little bit. And his decision making is not the best. But he'll make enough plays with that team. But I need to see more out of them. But they're Super Bowl ready because they're the most talented team in all of football. The Dallas Cowboys are Super Bowl ready. This is the problem I got with the Cowboys. Too many penalties. You watch the Giant game, too many pre-snap penalties. And I was talking to a guy who believes the Cowboys are going to Super Bowl. He said, oh, magically, those pre-snap penalties they've committed all year long will disappear in the playoffs. Maybe they won't, maybe they won't. Now, you can get away with it with teams you know you could beat. But if you're going to Frisco, you're going to Philadelphia, you get pre-snap penalties, you got 2nd and 7, and now it's 2nd and 17. The drive is probably over because the Eagles are too good to allow you to get the first down. Now you got to punt. Instead of getting points, you got to punt. That could be the difference between winning and losing. That could be the difference between getting 3 and getting 7 and getting 0 points. It's the little things that get you beat. And Dallas has to clean up because they got the best pass rush in the league. Van Der Esch is really, because of his injury history, you haven't seen the best of him, but he's solid this year. So you're getting good linebacker play. They're solid in the secondary, although Diggs gets burnt, but Diggs makes plays. Diggs is it's a two-edged sword with Diggs because he can cover, but then he could get burnt because he's aggressive. He makes plays. But if the pass rush doesn't come home, like against Green Bay, you saw him get lit up by Watson on Green Bay. But they're Super Bowl ready because they're pass rush and Pollard. And I told you, the most important player other than Parsons on Dallas is Pollard. Because if Pollard's not running, Dak's not performing. When Zeke's going to give you the little 3 and 4 yards. He got 20 yards the other game. But when Pollard is the threat, because Pollard could go 80 yards at any time. because of his speed. Now he's running between tackles. The fear of Pollard makes defenses go vanilla. Instead of confusing Dak, they have to have 9 in the box, 8 in the box. Now you got one-on-one coverage with CD and Gallup, who's a good route runner. Now Dak, can Dak perform? So I've given you all the Super Bowl ready teams. Washington's a team that could pull off upsets. I love Heineke. Washington's a team, like if Dallas has to play them a third time, maybe Washington could get them. Or if Washington has to play the Eagles again. Or if Washington had to go to Minnesota. I can see Washington going to Minnesota and ruining their season in Minnesota. Washington, I don't think they care where they go. They're one of those teams that are tough on the road. Seattle's not ready yet, but this is a good story. And those are my playoff teams. Now, quarterbacks I trust, quarterbacks I don't trust. I kind of trust Mahomes. He's great. Mahomes still has a lot to prove. He won the Super Bowl, didn't play great, played lousy, even though he didn't have a great line against Tampa. Played lousy. Played great against Buffalo in the first round and lousy in the second half. That horrible decision against Cincinnati in the end of the half, 21-3, blowing that lead, not scoring another point, throwing a bad interception in overtime. So he's got a lot to prove. And he's on that mission, on that Steph Curry-like mission, it looks like. We'll see if they're solid enough. I don't think Tua has a lot to prove because he's still in the developmental phase. And he hasn't had a bad playoff history. Josh Allen has something to prove. Played great against Kansas City. Throwing a lot of bad picks this year in the red zone. He's got a lot to prove. And, Buffalo with all that history. Tannehill has a lot to prove. Lamar Jackson has a whole lot to prove. He's been underwhelming this year. Horrible against Jacksonville. He's got a lot to prove. I don't want to say Joe Burrow because this is second year. Even if they don't make it, their future's bright for them. I wouldn't say the Jets or the Patriots because they're still getting better. But I definitely don't say Jalen Hurts because he's still in his developmental phase. But Kirk Cousins, Jimmy Garoppolo, and Dak Prescott got a lot to prove. Not the best playoff history. Other than Garoppolo has won. He won in Green Bay last year. He went to the Super Bowl. But he makes that killer mistake that's kept San Francisco from getting rings. Can they get over the hump? Get back to the Super Bowl? Can Dak win multiple playoff games? He's got one playoff win. Bad losses. Bad play. Bad starts to games. But can he? Now you got the team that's Super Bowl ready. Can he, and his age and maturity, seal the deal? That's what I'm waiting to see. Okay, college football came out with the rankings. I'm going to tell you the truth about the landscape of college football. First, the biggest game of last week. Michigan, this is why Michigan blew out Ohio State. Ohio State had an arrogant, overconfident mentality. They had that was a fluke last year. It was snowing in Michigan. We're going to come out here and kill. Their mentality is we're going to blow them out. We're going to prove that we own them. And we're going to come out here. We're going to show up. And we're going to do what we've been doing to all these little weak sisters of poor teams in the Big Ten. And Michigan came in wanting to play football and coached well. I told you about Ryan Day. I told you I don't trust this guy. Urban Meyer won a national championship, and he took the talent. And they won close games. I always wondered if the other team that has equal talent punches Ohio State in the face like Oregon did. What happens? This is what happens. And Michigan, I tell you what was big. When J.J. McCarthy passed to Cornelius Johnson, who went clean off the 69-yard touchdown, 3rd and 9, let everybody in Ohio State and Columbus and the Horseshoe know we are here. We're not going anywhere. Even when Marvin Harrison Jr. made that awesome touchdown, giving the lead by 3, Michigan came right back in the third quarter, took the lead to Colson Loveland, and it was a great pass. J.J. McCarty threw the deep ball accurate. He hasn't done that this year, but Harbaugh gave him a little tip on how to throw the deep ball better, and he learned from it, and he did good. And the biggest play of the game, and this shows you how badly outcoached Ryan Day was by Jim Harbaugh. 3rd and 1, Kalel Mullins, who hadn't really got any carries, takes the ball. Actually, he's going to run, throws the pass from the running back position to Luke Shoemaker, and they complete, they score, and they just annihilated the backup. Donovan Edwards, 260 yards. They just destroyed Ohio State. And Ohio State got their comeuppance. They didn't come ready to play. No adjustments. And Stroud had 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. And they really, what they did, they kind of allowed underneath stuff, other than getting burned with the touchdown from Harrison, they made Ohio State be patient. Ohio State came in there thinking they were going to explode, go deep, and it was just going to be a air raid. But Michigan came in well coached, and by halftime, you saw, even the announcers said you saw how tight Ohio State was. You saw it in their face. You saw Ryan Day. You saw him commit a stupid penalty that took them out of field goal range, unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. Ryan Day took out the receiver, said, "Get him out." You could see the pressure because they were not ready to play in a close game because they thought it was going to be a blowout. And Michigan came to play. And this is the thing: Michigan is rated 2, Georgia's 1, TCU's 3, USC's 4. I do not, under any circumstance, other than USC TCU losing, want to see Ohio State make it. If TCU loses, put Alabama in. Alabama lost, and Alabama hasn't blown me away this year because they've underachieved. But they lost twice on the road in the last minute. Ohio State got their doors blown out at home to Michigan, and their schedule is not as good as the SEC schedule. SEC has some weak sisters of the poor at the bottom, but they're solid up top, and there's nothing in the Big Ten. Purdue's not any good, other than Illinois, and who's good. Michigan's really good, and Ohio State's good. But the SEC is got 6 or 7 teams that are good, really good. And they got some weaknesses of the poor, of course, but they're really good teams. Even their bad teams got better. You see South Carolina, how good they played, and they whooped Clemson, who was ranked high. I'm a Rutgers grad. Rutgers could not even play on the same field as any SEC teams, nor could Indiana, nor could Northwestern. So, strength of schedule, the margin of defeat, I understand it's 2 losses. But if TCU loses, the committee got to do the right thing and put Alabama in. Alabama's coming off a win. Ohio State got blown out. I understand the lust that ESPN and the committee has over Ohio State. But now if TCU and USC loses, you put Alabama, and you can put Ohio State in because that would make sense. But if one team loses between TCU and USC, you got to put Alabama in. Even Colin Cowherd said, "I'm taking a team that lost at the last second twice over a team that got destroyed by their rival." That's common sense. And college football at times can lack common sense. But that's just the truth. Ohio State fans say, "Oh, you're hating and all." It's not hating, it's the truth. If it was the other way around and Alabama got blown out by Auburn and Ohio State had 2 close losses, I say put Ohio State in over Alabama. That's the truth. That's why my show is Tell the Truth Sports Radio. If you're hating facts. Facts do not care about your emotion.